Hello everyone and welcome to a special spooky new episode of the StudioMEcast. You know we're doing our series with the horror Sci-fi Pittsburgh 48-hour film project because they have the best of screening and awards night coming up on the 29th of October at the Oaks Theater. Get your tickets in the description below, please, and thank you. And today I am joined by Alternative Milk Media. We have Nick Dart Max Kassidy, and their film is Body and Blood. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, once more, everybody, we've got a bunch of requirements for the 48 line of dialogue. I learned this secret long ago. You need an adhesive bandage as a prop, and you need to have Sean or Shonda Taker as a skater in the film, but each team pulls two genres that they get to work with or pick from. So Friday evening at the kickoff, you get your genres. What did you get? What did you think? What did you go with?
So I was at the kickoff event and Max was on an airplane.
A delayed flight.
Ooh.
Yeah. So we pull psychological horror and alien film, and we sort of decided before we even began that we wanted to make a horror film and not a sci-fi film, unless we got something that seemed easier to execute. And I felt like we had a lot of freedom with psychological horror as well, because it's sort of, it's a genre that is more about like the way that you make the film more so than the plot. And I think that that's kind of a nice sort of, creative restriction to have.
Yeah, that's a astute observation for the genre there, because you could have a psychological horror that the horror or thriller. Which one was it?
It's a psychological horror, I think.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I mean, you could have that take place in the Wild West and be a Western, or be a musical, or whatever. You can do a lot with it. So you get that, and you choose that as the genre that you're going with. So Friday evening usually is when teams are writing these things. How did the writing process go?
It was really good. So Max was still on a plane for, I think, a solid hour after we got the...
I paid for the Wi-Fi, ready to go. It didn't work. I am just receiving text messages about the genre we pulled and the prop. And I just started typing log lines on my phone, hoping nobody on the seats on the sides of me were overreading my messages as I'm okay, so we've got someone trapped in a basement. Yeah, so I started writing log lines. The team in Pittsburgh had a meeting.
Yeah, we had a Zoom meeting with some of our production heads. Nikki was our producer on this, Nikki Gashevsky, and she was meant to be our AD, but she got COVID the day before. But she facilitated a nice little writer's room, sans Max. And using some of these log lines that Max pitched, I had sort of the group pitch ideas, and we landed on a couple of different ones. And one of them being what we went with, which is about a religious group who use a ritual to help cancer patients overcome their illness. And so we went off and went our separate ways after this initial meeting to type up different scripts. And
we came back at 11.
But you arrived at
10.
At 10?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
So wow. I came in my little Uber. Nick and I are on the phone, and I am talking in graphic, gory detail about religious practices that we could totally sacrilege. And so as soon as I hung up the call, I was just so you know, I'm working on a 48-hour film, and I don't have anyone tied up being crucified in my basement. But I showed up at about 10. We finished. At that point, we had all the action laid out and we were missing dialogue, but we knew the main beats of the script. Mm-hmm. And then we hopped on a Zoom call and everyone brought their respective scripts. And 11 actually felt super ambitious to have the backbone of a script. I don't know how other teams work. But I was really impressed that we had 3 scripts to look at.
Yeah.
3, 4.
I think we had 3, yeah.
3 scripts to look at by 11, which was pretty cool.
Yes, that was pretty cool. I ended up being sort of a selfish and domineering team leader and chose our script that we were working on, and maybe should have been a little bit more like democratic or something. But I just felt like I had a clear idea of what we were setting out to make. So we sent everyone away and we finished up the script and then sent that finished product out at about, what time do you think that was? Maybe 1?
Maybe 1.
Yeah, it was maybe 1 a.m. that we had like the finished product. Our DP, Riles, was at a baseball game that night, and so didn't really get a hold of him until actually the next morning. But
wow.
yeah, I know. But I sort of had a pretty clear idea of how we were going to shoot it. It wasn't too many, there weren't too many setups that we needed.
We played smarter, not harder this time. We've done a 48-hour before, and our approach to that one was like first idea, best idea, which actually is not the gospel to live by, I don't think. The last 48 we did had like lots of setups and montages, and this time we were like, let's scale it back, let's figure out what the core of this is, and then figure out how to execute that. And so we only had 2 locations on this one, which I think saved us.
Yeah, it was really good. We knew, we were also writing for these locations in mind. We had access to Riles, our DP's house, and then we also shot at Lightbulb Rentals. Shout out to Lightbulb Rentals. They Alyssa let us film there, and they were also shooting there at the same time. But yeah, so we knew what we were doing. We had somewhat of a game plan. The next morning, the idea was that we'd get at it at 9 a.m. I didn't have a car in Pittsburgh at the time, so I had to wait for Riles to pick me up, and then we had to go get sound equipment, and then so we were like an hour late, which is maybe not the best way to start, but yeah, I don't know.
Well, fantastic. So I hear a bit about flights and Ubers and all that, and you're joining us today from California. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. I'm moving to Pittsburgh like next week.
Oh, welcome to Pittsburgh. Awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I worked in Pittsburgh in like at the end of last year, the start of this year. Met a lot of beautiful people there, and fell in love with the city. And yeah, so moving out there. But yeah, we're joining you live from Los Angeles, sunny Los Angeles right now. Excellent.
So Friday night, you get your scripts, and it's been a whirlwind. I keep forgetting to like put this at the very outset. Can you tell me what your positions were on this project? Like I watched it, I read the credits, I kind of, but just tell the people back home what your positions were.
Yeah, I was the team leader and the director on this.
And then we co-wrote it together, and then I acted in it as well.
Fantastic. Now, you've got a pretty fascinating cast. I've worked with Curtis and Celine before as well. I love those two. And so already, hang on. Was that Jesse Fang?
Yes, it was.
Jeez, yeah. Like he puts his head up. I'm like, Jesse? Like, I was like, how did I know like my friends are in this? So yeah, I've worked with Jesse. He's great. When I had worked with him, it was in a comedic role. So seeing him in this I'd seen him do a few other things, but seeing him in this, I'm like, wow, this project had such a great atmosphere and tone to it. You know, it had like, there's definitely a mood, which is something that I think, is, you know, you always have to be mindful about, and sometimes it goes to the wayside with some projects, you know, but you like, it's like, oh, we're telling this story, but sometimes it gets a little slipped away as far as like, okay, well, what's the tone and mood of this thing? But it was solid throughout with this. It kept you the whole time. So let's talk about that a bit. Like, when was your first... when did you get your first take on Saturday?
Oh, I wish that I had that number.
It was late.
It was like
honestly maybe
11 or even later. Okay. Maybe could have been later than that. Mm-hmm. But I really appreciate you saying that about like the tone and the mood. And I think that a lot of that comes down to the performances. And I think you're right to sort of point that out. And I think everyone was operating in the same world as far as their performances. Everyone was really grounded. And then Sav's music, our composer, I think really sort of tied the whole thing together in a way that, I think really served it. But yeah, so I don't think we got really going until 11 or 12 on the day. But once we got going, we were pretty much nonstop, I think.
They were fine.
Yeah.
Do you know how late you shot? Like when your last take was? Like what was your shooting period-ish?
I think we wrapped before midnight. Am I wrong? Was it like 12:45 or something later than that?
I blacked out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm asking all these
It
number
was
questions
dark
about like
outside.
the craziest whirlwind. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. And you're so right. Like
It was like 14 hours.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was.
So 9 until 12.
Oh, yeah.
Or
Yeah.
11 something. Yeah. I think that's about right.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
All right.
Yeah.
And while you're shooting, let's talk a little bit about post-production here. Did you wait to edit until after it was all shot? Were you dumping cards as you went? How did it go?
Yeah, we had Nick Capezio as our editor, and he did a fantastic job sort of running as a the DIT a little bit. Meanwhile, like while we're shooting, he unfortunately didn't get footage until we finished at our first location. We probably could have facilitated that a little bit better, but I think we didn't want to spend the time to like swap cards out and do that. But when we were packing up at the first location, he got all the footage from that and started putting a cut together. And then he set up on a little foldable table at a light bulb and started editing when we were shooting. And then he took the rest of the footage, drove the 45 minutes home. I think he might live in Ohio or something. But anyway, so he drove home, and then I text him as I'm about to fall asleep at 2 a.m. and I wake up at 6 or 7 and I have a whole cut that I get to watch in the morning.
Isn't that the most magical feeling? I've been very privileged to experience that. Like, you shoot during, like just right after you've got a cut to view. So it sounds like a really efficient post-production there for the cut. And I want to go more into it, but like just going through the 48 hours here, when did you submit your cut of the film?
I think our first submission was 5 p.m.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So it was pretty good. Honestly, I felt pretty good about that. Awesome. But I did spend that whole day. We were over time a little bit on our script if we were to include every line that we wrote. And so Nick made some cuts through the night to make it, under 7 minutes. So then I went in and changed the cuts that were made to, I think, just maybe keeping performance in mind more than anything. Like, I think, so then that was sort of the brunt of the work, was doing that, and then coloring,
scoring as well.
Yeah,
that day.
That's true. Yeah, Sav was in California scoring, so she was sending files, and I would make some more cuts, and that would screw up the timing of the music. So then Sav had to, redo the score and all that. So
wow.
Yeah.
So do you know so your first submission was at 5? Did you what time was the last submission you did? When did that go in?
Did we do another one?
I think we did. I think we did one at like 7.
Okay.
At like straight up at 7. Or did we not? Did we wait?
I think we decided to get dinner, and I don't think we did. I don't think we did.
Maybe we didn't. I think
we did paperwork when we got back.
Oh, that might have been it. Okay, well, I'm misremembering. But
there you go. No, it's I totally get it. That's all right. Yeah. Well, fantastic.
I'm gonna actually pull up the dash and see if I can find the receipts. They show us what time we submitted and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see if I can find it. But yeah, let's continue.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk a bit about the look of the film. So first off, adding to the whole tone of the thing, you don't have a ton of locations in this, right? But they're powerful, right? Like the room that the the healing, shall we say, is taking place in versus where we see Jesse most of the time. And I really liked the lighting throughout this project. I thought it really stood out because of that, like a bunch of reasons, but that's one of the things that just continues with the idea of tone, because, if you'd done high key lighting, it would not have felt right, but yeah, was that something that, because when you said your DP didn't really even get the script, or like came about on Saturday, basically, I'm like, really? That's interesting, because this is really together visually, and not just visually, but I just want to say, like, all of the elements of your film that are integrating together, it's really seemed like a film that was under control. Like it didn't look like you need more time for lighting. It didn't look like you needed to get more takes. The makeup looked great. It didn't look like, if only we have a few more minutes for makeup. And it's like, no, it's like the production, like what we're seeing on screen, that really came together nicely, and all those different elements complemented each other really well. Sorry, it sounds like I'm giving a review here. Sorry, I'm just enjoying your film. But there's tell me about at what point did the look of the lighting come into the discussion?
I actually think the look of the lighting was already being discussed like a few months ago. Riles and I, we've worked together now on 3 projects. Usually I DP and he's my AC, but he stepped up as DP on this. And just the way that we work, it's really collaborative. We understand each other. We also had Nick Dart on this as our gaffer, and so he would step up with great lighting ideas. And I think one of the biggest factors that separates like my more amateur looking work from my less amateur looking work, it's always what's in the frame more than how I'm shooting it or lighting it. It's like that room is there's so many textures in that room. The costumes from Camille were so good. The makeup on Celine, making her look sick. Like just all of the elements, I think, are what make it look the way it does. And then our decisions as like filmmakers and gaffers and DPs, I think they're really informed often by the space. So it's like, there's windows here, we need to shoot light through them, and just not making making the right choices. You said, like, if it was a high key look, like if everything was front lit and looking like a beauty commercial, it wouldn't feel the same. So yeah, it's just making these sort of informed decisions, but they're really, I think the images are being elevated by everyone's work more so than like, my decisions as a director to steer people.
I have a thought.
Yeah, what's your thought?
One of the reasons I really enjoy working with Nick is he has so much respect for everyone's positions and roles that they're playing and the art that is taking place there. And you could really feel that on the set, right? Like makeup had enough time, costumes had enough time, like everyone had enough time to do their work, actors had enough time, because you were just really honoring the pace that was needed for everyone to do work they were proud of. And I think that's part of why everything felt so cohesive in the end, and also the vibe on set was so cohesive, is because no one had to make giant sacrifices to accommodate like the process of a 48, which was really surprising. I think like when you have a really small amount of time, there's so much pressure to like get things happening. And when not everybody understands laterally the work everyone's doing, it's easy to start being like, well, can we wrap that up? Like, and I just feel like that's not the environment that you nurture or cultivate. And that's why I enjoy working with you, right? Is everybody has enough time for their processes and is respected in that process. And that's why I feel like it's so cohesive, is because everyone got the opportunity to do the kind of work they wanted to do.
That's cool. I appreciate hearing that. Yeah. I think it really is just a testament to the team. And so Thank you for saying those complimentary things.
So this is a question that I think you both might answer separately, but maybe not. Differently, but maybe not. Which is, I said this film really comes across as though the different elements you're working with are under control. Any 48-hour film project has crunched moments in it and time. What was the most, to make it dramatic, what was the most difficult hour for either of you in that 48? And if you mentioned it before, that's okay. Just tell me again.
No, that's great. Do you have an answer on top of your head?
The night before, we had like a short list. Lean had a short list of actors we wanted to work with, and we started making calls, and like people weren't available. Someone like had it just ended up getting a little more scrambled, and we had to get a little more creative, and that just is kind of what the 48 hour is rolling with the punches. I do think things felt pretty easy going the whole time. Like I feel like even on regular sets, tension gets high quickly often. I feel like we had a slow start in the morning, which kind of like underneath it like gave everyone a sense of urgency. But once we started moving, it like really relaxed in because we were getting the shots we needed and everyone was prepared and everything looked good. And so everyone could kind of like relax into it. Yeah. But I scared the fuck out of Ryle's mom because I walked in with a gallon of like fake blood into the living room and we didn't know where we were shooting yet. And she was like, "Oh, is that for inside?" And I was like, "Oh no, it's for another location." But like, we just like were missing clarity, I think, at the top as far as like what the day would look like. But as soon as we found that, it was really like easy to just kind of follow the pace and the gate of that.
Yeah. To piggyback on that, I think I was going to mention the casting process as well. So Celine was our casting director on this, and she had a short list of actors who were available. A couple weeks ago, they were like, "Yes, I'm in." And so we were writing this with this one particular actor in mind as the Reverend, not Curtis. He's the slightly older gentleman, like maybe in his 40s or 50s, and different look. And we had this guy in mind. And then Celine sort of got back to us when he finally replied and was like, "Oh, he's got surgery tomorrow." Like, so it's, that couldn't happen.
Yikes.
So then,
hope he's all right.
The whole... Yeah, I know. I think he's all right. You know what? That's a good thing. We should probably check in on that. But yeah, the whole casting process was happening in that hour that I was late. I was on the phone with Celine, in the car with Riles, and eventually we had to have Riles' dad.
Oh yeah, we swapped everything around so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So the character's name is Jacob, but he's sitting next to Celine, and sort of, I think the idea is that he's the father of this sick woman.
Yeah, he's never acted before, but he did great.
Yeah, he did a great job.
He was such a good sport.
Yeah. So that was fun, but it was a really interesting hour to sort of last minute put the cast together, and I'm so grateful that it ended up the way it did, because I think Curtis's performance is out of this world, and everything worked out, I think, exactly as best as it could. So
it's a tricky process. Oh no, it's just a tricky process. It's like doing a puzzle where there's 30 people all doing it at the same time, and like you just dump the pieces out. And when you do a puzzle, you start with the corners and you add things in them. And it's like, no, everyone has to start building it at the same time, and nobody knows quite what the picture is yet. And so it's challenging to have everyone arrive at the same conclusion, but somehow that happened. I feel like it came together really beautifully.
Yeah, you gotta get all the clocks have to strike at the same time, and because and different people might be ready at different points, and surgery and all that. And I think once again, we hope that the gentleman going into surgery, we wish him the best, speedy recovery, etc. I think for the film, I thought that having Curtis play that character was, I thought it was an interesting angle to have that role be someone younger.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's something to that because you're also dealing with religious symbolism and subject matter, and having a younger person come in to do that, just I don't, it gives it a different flavor than having an older guy. Like, not that that would be the wrong decision to have an older actor, but it does give it a different dimension to it, which I think ended up having its own power for the project. So it's about rolling with those punches, like you say, you know. And I think it's nice also that Celine got to be in the film as well. It was funny because I was watching it, and I didn't immediately realize I had it's you. Like, I knew Curtis was in this. His face has been everywhere on it. You know, it's like, oh, here I'm posting pictures, and that's great. But it was like I got double surprised with Celine at one point when like she leans forward or something. I'm like, wait, Celine? Oh, that's you, you know. And then, as I said before, with Jesse, so that's fun. Had you worked with? I'm just gonna pick on them, not pick on, but you know, focus on them because I know them the best. But like, had you worked with the three of them before? You know, let's open it up. Had you worked with any of this cast before? Why
yeah, I've worked with Jesse at the start of this year on like a really tiny 2-page little horror short that ended up sort of, anyway, but the process was really good. We had a pretty decent time on set, and I really enjoyed working with Jesse. And then I hadn't worked with Celine or Curtis, but I believe our producer Nikki has, like, multiple times.
Oh, when Curtis came up, Celine was like, "What about Curtis?" And everyone else was in the room was like, "Oh my God, he would be amazing! Like, Curtis is amazing!" Like, we knew that we had struck gold just by the energy of everyone else being like, "Is he available? Like, please."
Yeah.
So we were excited about that.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. He's sort of got a reputation, I think, a really positive one in the Pittsburgh film community. So
it's been it's been nice to see his work over the years, and I've gotten to work with him as well. It was a pleasure, and so I think it was really good too for him to come forward in this film with this lead role as well, because he really is the linchpin of the whole thing, right? And he handles it very well. So Curtis, if you're watching this now, once again, you know what I think of you, so well done. But
yeah, I think that his reputation is really well deserved. And it's funny that you said, you know, it's interesting having a young actor play this part, and I just think that his energy is so grounded and doesn't feel like his energy that he brings to this character doesn't feel youthful. It's like,
he doesn't feel like the young cool priest who's like, "Hello everyone, let's get together and do all the," you know, like a youth camp counselor or anything like that. He's like got this really intense thing going on.
But it feels so dark because of, I think, him being younger. I think often in these genre type films we have this older priest, and the power is God's power. Like, there's not like physicality that creates that power dynamic in the space, right? But Curtis being like younger and like stronger and bigger, like, than like a older gentleman, like, really visually, I think, gave it some like ground, right? Especially as he's like torturing Jesse, and they're like, it's affirming to the story I think we wanted to tell. Right?
Yeah,
it's fun.
And I'll also add that Max and I have now worked together on like 7 or 8 projects. So
I'm really enjoying these insights you're bringing in, Max. It's like it's evident, like, the writer's mind you have just talking about this stuff too. So I've asked some teams this. Do you have a favorite film that falls into, like, feature film? I mean, outside this competition, do you have a favorite film that falls into the genre that you selected for this 48?
That's really good as a question. I mean, I don't know. It's like, I feel cliche saying Silence of the Lambs or something like that.
Hey, if it's a classic, it's a classic, man. And it's a Pittsburgh film.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. That's right.
So not
There
going
we
to
go.
get
So,
any
okay, I
complaints
guess
here about that.
Yeah, that's good. Cool.
How about you, Max?
As far as like a favorite, but I do have to say, like I grew up extremely religious, so this is was a really easy place for me to write from. That kind of language feels very casual from my writer's hand, and I was feeling. I haven't made a super like religious dark horror movie before, and not necessarily was like apprehensive about it, but was also not sure how I would feel about like really doing my parents proud, right? And then we went and saw The Exorcist last night, which has very similar themes to what we made. Yeah, and I was fine. I get really jumpy, but I was like, oh, I bet they had a great time making this, and suddenly had like debunked like horror films altogether. I don't know. So The Exorcist, I think, is like actually the next door neighbor of what I feel like we made.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of cool that you sort of don't watch a lot of horror films, but you step up to the writing of it.
Yeah, I don't enjoy being afraid, but I do enjoy writing horrifying things. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, that makes sense. You know, it's kind of funny when you hear that a lot. It's like actors who don't like watching themselves in films they're in, which blows my mind. I'm like, then why be one? Yeah, no, I'm kidding. But like or hearing about like Peter Jackson when he would make his gory horror comedy things like Brain Dead and Bad Taste and all that, but he's actually really squeamish around actual blood and injuries and stuff. Like they were filming Lord of the Rings, and Sean Astin got his foot gashed open by a bit of glass in the water at one point. And Peter Jackson, Sean Astin wrote in his biography for that time, he's like, Peter Jackson has made like the goriest movie ever made, and he was not acting like it when I got hurt. You know, it's a funny thing. So that's cool, though, that you enjoyed writing this horror psychological, and but it's not necessarily what you typically like to, what you typically go for when you're an audience member. What kind of films do you like? Let's start with Max.
Well, I love a dramedy. I love like a film for the girlies. Like I love Booksmart. I love, okay, here's the tea. Are we ready? I'm going to be invited to leave this podcast. I also love reality TV. So there's that.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
No problem. I watched a full season of The Bachelor in college with my now wife and a few roommates, and I got so into this thing that I couldn't tell you the names of anybody or what season it was, but I can tell you that boy made the wrong decision. So he like, it's perfectly wonderful girl. They have chemistry and everything, and he went with him. Whatever. Anyway, so this.
I always do.
But no, reality TV, cool. Like cooking shows or like what kind of thing?
It's like garbage, like anything that you're like, my brain's melting out my ears watching this. Great. And I think maybe it's just because like we take what we do so seriously that as an audience member, I cannot sit there. Like I struggle to sit there and not like watch the filmmaking or watch the acting or listen to the writing. And so like if I just want to like relax, like I'm gonna just watch Sister Wives, right? Like just like garbage. Yeah.
That's
I don't
shameful
share
take
that.
as a filmmaker for sure.
No, that's all right. I'm a fan of like kitchen nightmares, just like.
Oh yes.
Is it cake? Wow. It's not cake. It's never cake.
That's exactly. All right, Nick, how about you? What kind of films do you get into?
I actually am a really big horror fan. I think that my favorite director is probably John Carpenter. Pretty basic, but he's, it's the holy gospel of horror, and I get into all sorts of things. I really like Kiyoshi Kurosawa. Do you know that director? He's a Japanese. He's like a younger.
I think so. I'm not sure I've seen any of his films to like the whole thing, but I'm familiar. Like unless my brain is just going Akira Kurosawa, but different.
Yeah.
But
right.
Kurosawa takes up a lot of my brain space. So.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
he's like the greatest of all time, right? Kurosawa, the Akira,
Oh,
Akira
it's
Kurosawa.
Seven Samurai, Ron Kagemusha, Yojimbo Sanjuro, and Rashomon, Dreams, etc. The guy has like, geez, he's like everybody else's favorite filmmaker's favorite filmmaker.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
think that it's so interesting seeing like Seven Samurai being like a 3.5 hour movie, and it feels like a tight 90. It's
it's
like
amazing.
ridiculous
I
pacing.
love that movie. I remember
Yeah.
my dad when I was a kid telling me about, he's like, oh, well, a lot of movies have the same storylines. I'm like, Dad, what do you mean? You mean like remakes? He's like, well, no, you've seen A Bug's Life. I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, that's based on the Seven Samurai. I'm like, what is that? He's like, you'll see it later. But yeah, there's Seven Samurai, and then of course Magnificent Seven, and it goes on forever. But yeah, that's a really it's a really cool thing. I love Seven Samurai. Who doesn't? Hot take. It's a great movie.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, I'm a big fan of horror. I try to consume a fair amount of it. Yeah, and that director that I mentioned, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, his stuff is really inspiring to me because he doesn't use many jump scares or any at all. It's like there's something about his work that is able to make you feel real fear without relying on the tension release sort of pacing, which is the bread and butter of horror films. But still, it's interesting.
It's always nice to see someone do something fresh with a genre that feels like it's been completely explored. It's like when you see a Western that's not like any other Western you've seen. It's like, oh, it doesn't have a stagecoach robbery or like a normal saloon situation, like something like Django. That's like, it's like, oh, I haven't seen this movie before. I love Westerns, but this one's fresh. And so that's great to hear about Kurosawa doing, his own thing with horror. So I'll have to, I'm not sure. I've watched a lot of Japanese films. I'm not sure if I've gotten to any of his, but I'll take the recommendation and I will check.
Yeah, check out Pulse, the movie Pulse. I don't know what the Japanese name is, but make sure you watch not the American remake, but the Japanese one. That was really good.
Yeah, I might not have seen his films. I'm not a complete idiot. I won't watch the American remake first.
Yeah,
that's
cool.
Great. All right. Okay. Well, here I go again, totally leaving something for the end that I should have brought at the beginning. But hey, it's a sweet sort of dessert thing for us here. What are you nominated for this Sunday?
Yeah, the first shout out that I'll give is Curtis is nominated for Best Performance, Best Actor.
Nice.
And Max and Jesse are both nominated for Best Supporting.
Oh, excellent.
And then what else? Do you have any memory? We're nominated for Best Film, which is
congratulations
really
and huzzah. Excellent.
Thank you. Nominated for Best Writing.
Congrats
best
again.
Costumes. Yeah.
Teamwork.
Yeah, Best Costumes and Best Makeup as well. Best Original Music for Sav.
Mm-hmm.
And
you pull the list?
Yeah, I'm going to try to find a list. But yeah, I think that's most of them, honestly. I don't know. Do you have anything off the top of your head?
No, I just don't want to forget.
All right. Well, here, Nick, while you're doing that, let me ask Max another question or two so we can keep things going here. So you said, I believe before we started recording that this is not your, no, yeah, I think you said during the, doesn't matter. This isn't your first 48, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many have you done?
We've done one other. Have you done any other ones?
I've done.
Oh, you've done two.
Yeah, I've done two other than this as well.
Yeah, we did one. What month? August. Oh, it was tough. It was a tough one.
Mm-hmm.
But I think part of the reason I'm so attracted to the format of a 48 is it's so forgiving and so unforgivable, right? Like I think as artists and as filmmakers, there's so much pressure we put on ourselves to like our own work and to have it be perfect. Like we're just such perfectionists that so like there's so much pressure to take it across the finish line, even when you're like, they have shoes in one shot and they don't have shoes in the other, right? Like, they're like, oh, we can't do a reshoot. And so to have a process,
just something.
Exactly. Like we have saved several films, and to have a process that allows you the freedom to know that you're failing and still have to follow through is really attractive. And also to get to do the whole process from something that has no conception at all the way to having an audience laugh at the jokes you wrote is such a gift. I think there's normally that process takes a really long time, and to get to follow it all through in a weekend and then say, oh, well, or well done, or that was amazing, or that was so hard and I'm going to think about it every night before I go to bed, right? So it's such an invitation as a filmmaker to swing for the fences and fail big, or to swing for the fences and think, if this is what we're capable of doing in 48 hours, imagine if we had 6 months, imagine if we had 2 years, and imagine if we had $10 million, right?
Right.
And so I think like the amount of limitations that exist allow for creativity without judgment. Because if it's bad work, it was 48 hours, right? And it like just takes away, I think, the pressure and the tension of executing perfectly, which is a really hard challenge to do when the stakes are high. And the stakes are high when it's a project you've been writing for forever, or you're putting your own money and you're asking for favors from people. And like, it's like a different thing to have everyone be on the ride together and really ride the river of like whatever happens. And I just don't know that there's very many containers as a filmmaker where you find that kind of reverence for like whatever it is, it will be, right?
It really emboldens people to come together, and everything you said, because one of the things that I'm fond of mentioning is I relate it to writing. When I was younger and before I could make any of my ideas happen, I'd get frustrated writing because I'm like, I'm not even going to get to make this. And then I'd write something, I'd be like, even if I could make something, this isn't the one I'd make. And I like felt at the time when I was younger and way more naive that was somehow a waste of time. But it wasn't, because I was still spending the time writing and interacting with story, and that helped me to at least get better. And the same is true for anything anybody does on a 48. As you said, at the end of it, it's 48 hours, like if it didn't turn out the way that you hoped, it was just a weekend, except for, the people who are doing the planning. Of course, there is stuff leading up to it, an organization. But for the vast majority of the positions, that's how it is. It's a way that you can just get together, and every single one of those 48 hours count for your experience, and just is all about, we love cinema, and it's great to do together. So Nick, do you have that list for us?
Oh yeah, we also are nominated for best sound design, and I'm nominated for best director.
Oh, congratulations! Isn't that nice? Well done. Well, fantastic. Well, we're just about coming up on our time here. I've really enjoyed this conversation. So I think I'll just outro us here, which is to say, everybody who's watching this, first off, thanks. Also, there's a link in this description, and that link takes you to get some tickets to go see 13, very spooky, 13 original short films made here in the wonderful city of Pittsburgh. Have a great night out. Can't wait to see you. Hope that, it's everything you dream and more. And to Nick and Max, thank you so much for being my guest here today at StudioME.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Bye-bye, everyone. See you on the next one. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you want to start your own podcast, why wait? Reach out to us at StudioME.me, and I hope you hear me again soon.